When you think about natural disasters, what comes to mind? Probably massive, totally unpredictable events, right? Well, what if I told you one of the biggest killers out there is actually hiding in plain sight, kind of disguised in the data? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and uncover what the numbers are really telling us about the true cost of these disasters. So let's start with this number, 65,600. That's the average number of people killed by natural hazards every single year, worldwide. It's a huge, staggering number, but you know what? It's not the full story, not even close. In fact, that number hides a really crucial and honestly, a dangerous misunderstanding. And that really brings us to the heart of the matter today. Are we even counting these deaths the right way? The source material we're diving into suggests we are missing something big. And that miscalculation, it has actual life or death consequences.
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, we've got to understand how the data is organized. The source breaks it down into this two-tiered framework. Tier 1 events, those are the huge, catastrophic ones we all picture. Massive earthquakes or record-breaking heat waves. Then you have Tier 2. These events are smaller, sure, but they happen way more often and critically, they're often predictable. Think floods or landslides.
Now, if you just glance at this chart, the story seems pretty simple. You see that giant purple section, right? That's Tier 1, the big catastrophes. They look like they account for a whopping 80% of all fatalities. Earthquakes alone are responsible for over half of that. And that little 20% slice, that's our Tier 2 events. But this is where the story starts to get really interesting.
So let's do exactly that. Let's dig into that 20%, because hidden inside the data of these smaller, more frequent Tier 2 hazards is a killer that is way deadlier than the official numbers would have you believe.
All right, here are the official stats. According to these numbers, floods are the biggest killer in Tier 2, claiming more than 11,000 lives a year. And mass movements, we're talking landslides, rockfalls, that kind of thing, they officially cause just over 3,000 deaths. Okay, remember that number, 3,075. That's our baseline. So wait a minute. If mass movements are this hidden killer, but the official stats show they cause way fewer deaths than floods, something just doesn't add up. So where are all those other deaths hiding? Well, the clue isn't in the event itself, but in what triggers it.
And this brings us to this really key concept, cascading disasters. Think of it like a domino effect. A massive Tier 1 event, like an earthquake, happens, but it doesn't just stop there. It acts as a trigger, setting off a whole chain reaction of smaller, more predictable Tier 2 hazards, like thousands of landslides across an entire region.
And here it is. This is the smoking gun. A direct quote from the source that just changes everything. When an earthquake triggers a deadly landslide, those victims don't get counted as landslide deaths. Nope, they're recorded as earthquake deaths. The big, primary event gets all the statistical credit, and that secondary, often more predictable killer gets completely lost in the data.
So what we're seeing is that the statistics are basically hiding the truth from us. Let's follow the numbers and see what happens when we recalculate things with this new insight. Okay, get this. Research estimates that somewhere around 10,000 deaths that are currently blamed on earthquakes each year are actually caused by the landslides and rock falls that those earthquakes trigger. We are talking about 10,000 miscategorized deaths every single year. Let's just walk through the math real quick. We start with that official number for mass movements, right? 3,075. Then we add in the roughly 10,000 deaths that were hiding in the earthquake data. And all of a sudden, the new annual total for mass movements just skyrockets to over 13,000.
And look at this new chart. This is the big reveal. Once we count correctly, mass movements aren't some distant third-place hazard. They are number one. With over 13,000 deaths a year, they are significantly deadlier than floods. This completely changes how we should be thinking about and prioritizing risk.
And look, this isn't just about shuffling numbers around. Understanding this hidden killer is more urgent right now than it has ever been. Because our global risk, it's actually getting worse.
It really comes down to two powerful global trends that are putting more and more people right in harm's way. First, urbanization. As our cities get bigger, we're building houses and roads in more hazardous areas, like on or right below steep slopes. And second, climate change is making the triggers, like intense rainfall or thawing permafrost, more frequent and way more severe.
Just let that sink in for a second. We are knowingly building our most critical infrastructure,
our highways, our railways, our homes, directly in the path of a hazard that we now know is the deadliest of its kind. And it's one that's only becoming more common.
But, and this is a really important but, this story isn't just about risk. The most powerful part of this whole discovery is the incredible opportunity it gives us. This is about a catastrophe that we can prevent.
Here's the beautiful irony in all of this. The very thing that makes landslides so dangerous, the fact that they're triggered by things we can measure, like earthquakes or heavy rain, is also what makes them predictable. Unlike a massive earthquake that strikes without warning, we can often identify the conditions that lead to a slope failing.
And because we can see the risk, we can do something about it. We have the technology to monitor unstable slopes. We can install systems to detect the early warning signs. We can engineer solutions to protect communities, and we can plan our towns and cities to stay out of the most dangerous zones. These deaths are preventable. So, the data has pointed a finger at a hidden killer, but it's also given us a roadmap to saving thousands of lives every year. The science isn't the problem anymore. The real question now is, with this knowledge, what are we, as a society, going to do about it?